apa kejadian di waktu-waktu terakhir.
Ban on raising banners reciting takbir not government stand. Regional integration can reduce social disparities and trade barriers. Good evening and salam Malaysia Madani. You're watching Malaysia Tonight with me, SAHIH. The Public Service Palestinian Humanitarian Fund was launched today as an initiative to demonstrate solidarity and humanitarian spirit among civil servants toward the struggle of the Palestinian people. Chief Secretary to the Government, Tan Sri Muhammad Zuki Ali, who launched the fund, urged all Secretaries General and Directors General to aggressively collect donations in their respective ministries, departments and agencies within 2 weeks starting today. The government previously established the Humanitarian Trust Fund for the people of Palestine to help alleviate the suffering of the Palestinians affected by the conflict in the Gaza Strip. The Trust Fund was established under Subsection 9, Subsection 1 of the Financial Procedure Act 1957 in 2002. It is under the supervision of the Foreign Affairs Ministry with the mandate to collect, coordinate and distribute humanitarian contributions from the people of Malaysia to the Palestinians. The ban on raising banners criticising Israeli leaders and reciting takbir at the Freedom for Palestine rally last Sunday is not the position of the government or peace-loving Muslims in this country. Home Minister Datuk Sri Saifuddin Nasution Ismail said the ban is at the discretion of the organisers who are responsible for ensuring peace and public order. Elaborating further, during the Minister's question time in the Dewan Rakyat today, he said the Peaceful Assembly Act 2012 required the organisers to be responsible to ensure they and others in the Assembly did not commit acts and did not issue statements that tended to develop bad feelings or hostility among the public.
Dari segi undang-undang lain seperti saya sebut semalam dalam jawapan saya pada Pagoh, Kanun Keseksaan, Akta Hasutan 48 atau Komunikasi dan Multimedia. Bermaksud perlembagaan dan akta-akta tersebut dianggap sudah memadai dalam perkara menguruskan sesuatu perjalanan perhimpunan awam.
The National Biodiversity Council (NBN) must be further empowered as the primary platform to strengthen policies and strategies for biodiversity conservation at the national level. Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim said the proposed establishment of the Malaysia Biodiversity Centre (MBC) as a national centre of excellence for biodiversity would complement biodiversity management initiatives at the state level. Datuk Sri Anwar added that this would make the establishment of the Malaysian Natural History Museum a reality. The Prime Minister said this in his speech read out by Minister of Natural Resources, Environment and Climate Change, Nik Nazmi Nik Ahmad, at the opening of the National Biodiversity Conference and the launching of the National Biodiversity Policy DKBK 2022-2030 in Putrajaya today.
Kita pun dah bentangkan di dalam mesyuarat Majlis Biodiversiti Negara yang mana dihadiri oleh menteri-menteri besar dan ketua-ketua menteri. Jadi setakat ini tidak ada masalah lah dari segi feedback yang mereka bagi sangat positif tentang perkara ini.
The end-of-life policy for old vehicle as a measure to reduce carbon emission is not suitable to be implemented at the present time. According to Minister of Transport Anthony Loh, the policy needs to take into account the socio-economic conditions of the people.
Jadi perubahan-perubahan seperti ini dia mengambil masa. Berkenaan dengan kereta-kereta lama, memang kalau kita buat satu dasar yang tidak membenarkan kenderaan lama, itu akan memberikan kesusahan kepada rakyat. Ia akan menyusahkan rakyat. Jadi kita kena faham juga keadaan sosioekonomi dalam negara kita. Apa sahaja perubahan, walaupun kita mahu menjurus ke arah sustainability, mengurangkan carbon emission, tetapi dasar-dasar yang perlu kita laksanakan mesti juga mengambil kira keadaan sosioekonomi dalam negara kita. Untuk permulaan, kerajaan telah pun memberikan insentif untuk pembelian e-motorbike. Jadi ini merupakan satu kaedah yang baik kerana kita memberikan insentif sehingga RM2,400 untuk pembelian e-motorbike ini.
According to the minister, motorcycles are the largest contributors to carbon emissions in the country, and approximately 15 million out of 30 million registered vehicles are motorcycles. Coming up in our business segment, semiconductor and other E&E products to spur exports recovery in the fourth quarter. Malaysia is calling for regional integration to reduce social disparities and trade barriers among Asian countries. Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Fadilah Yusof said active participation from all Asian nations can boost economic growth and create jobs in the green economy by leveraging their extensive infrastructure, particularly in transportation.
With 4.7 billion people and a GDP of $41.3 trillion, Asia has the potential to be the epicenter of the global economy. Moving forward, we must cooperate strategically in the transportation sector, which is essential for sustaining economic growth for our mutual benefits.
The Deputy Premier said Malaysia has heavily invested in sustainable transportation, supporting public transportation projects to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. He also said Malaysia is committed to reducing carbon emissions in the transportation sector, and the country aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 45% of GDP by 2030 compared to 2005 levels. He added that embracing eco-friendly practices in transportation is both environmentally responsible and beneficial for creating a more efficient, sustainable business models. The Atomic Energy Licensing Board (LPTA) has updated the current terms and conditions of LINA's operating license, which expires in March 2026. Science, Technology and Innovation Minister Chang Lih Kang said this includes the permission to import raw materials containing naturally occurring radioactive materials norm.
Pertimbangan ini juga membenarkan aktiviti cracking and leaching (C&L) diteruskan tertakluk kepada syarat bahawa liners hendaklah memastikan kandungan radiatif dalam residu water leach purification (WLP) di bawah 1 becquerel per gram melalui program R&D yang diterajui oleh pakar tempatan.
He said the decision by LPTA was made based on the findings of preliminary research at the laboratory level, which showed that thorium radioactive material can be extracted from the WLP residue. With this development, he said the operations comply with legal controls and protect the interests of the people. Subsequently, he said the country will be able to attract high-value investments in the local rare earth industry to support the manufacturing industry of advanced high-tech materials. AmBank Research expects the share subscription agreement SSA in Digital Nasional Berhad DNB and the new Ikuti structure to be finalised and subscribed by the end of October this year to expedite 5G development rollouts across the country. It reckons that the second 5G network will be rolled out in early 2024 depending upon DNB's network coverage of populated areas (COPA) reaching 80% by the end of 2023. As of 30th September, DNB 5G network COPA has reached 70.2% with 5,873 sites. It's said to achieve the target, all telco must take an equity stake in entity A, and once achieved, telcos can move to entity B and have their stakes acquired by those left in entity A, in addition to the government relinquishing its shareholding in DNB to the private entities. AmBank Research said these players potentially have equal substantive stakes in DNB, assuming the latter is 100% owned by them. The equity stakes will rise to 20% with a substantive value of 300 million compared to the previously proposed 65% telco shareholding, which implied an average of 210 million for a 14% stake each. With fibre prices are being lowered following the revision of mandatory standard access pricing (MSAP), AmBank Research expects broadband prices of other telcos to follow suit after TM's revision on the reference access offer (RAO) for wholesale charges and reduction in its own unified retail prices. The recovery of Malaysia's exports will be championed by semiconductor and other electrical and electronics E&E products in the fourth quarter of this year, 4Q 2023. MIDF Research said this would be aided by no further tightening of monetary policy in major economies and better progress in China's economic recovery as stimulus measures start to kick in. The research house, through a statement release, said although overall E&E exports fell marginally by 0.6% year-on-year (YOY) in the first 9 months of 2023, more than 70% of exports of E&E products continued expanding steadily so far this year. Apart from semiconductors, MIDF noticed electrical switcher relays and circuits, electrical power machinery and electromedical equipment increased by 3.1%, 25.8% and 7.8% YOY respectively in 9 months. By market structure, Malaysia's E&E is shifting towards the semiconductor industry, given that the ratio to E&E export rose to the latest 67.7% from 59.5% in 2019. The research firm also expects the ratio to reach a higher point in later years as guided by the new Industrial Master Plan 2030 strategies. Singapore City Energy Pte Limited and Gentari Sdn Bhd have inked a joint feasibility study agreement to construct a pipeline from Malaysia to Singapore for the import of hydrogen into the Republic. This follows a memorandum of understanding signed in April 2023 between City Energy, Singapore's sole producer and provider of piped down gas, and Gentari. City Energy is a wholly owned unit by Keppel Infrastructure Trust, while Gentari is a Malaysian clean energy solutions provider wholly owned by Petroleum Nasional Berhad. According to City Energy's Chief Executive Officer, Perry Ong, the year-long feasibility study will explore the design, construction and operation of a hydrogen pipeline from Johor, Malaysia to City Energy's Senoko gaswork plant in northern Singapore. Upon the conclusion of the study, both parties will collectively determine the way forward in relation to the execution of a front-end engineering design agreement. The collaboration between City Energy and Gentari will continue a long-standing cooperation between the two countries. Since 1991, Singapore has been importing natural gas from Malaysia via the 2,623-kilometre-long Peninsular Gas Utilisation Pipeline, owned and operated by Gentari's sister company Petronas Gas Berhad. Hong Leong Investment Bank Berhad HLIB has raised its 2024 crude palm oil CPO price assumption by 200 ringgit to 4,000 ringgit per tonne. This is attributable to the lower CPO output anticipation, which is likely to be seen by the end of the first half of 2024 or early second half of 2024. HLIB today said the current weakness in CPO price would likely be temporary and is expected to recover from 2024 as the current high palm oil stockpile in major palm producing countries such as Malaysia and Indonesia will likely peak soon on the back of peaking palm production. According to the investment bank, CPO price has been trending down recently, with the year-to-date average price standing at 3,866 per tonne due to several bearish factors. Those factors included seasonally high palm cropping patterns, high vegetable oil stock levels among key vegetable oil consuming countries, and weak demand sentiment for vegetable oils, including palm oil. Short-term interbank rates closed stable today on Bank Negara Malaysia's BNM operations to absorb surplus liquidity from the financial system. Liquidity in the conventional system was slightly lower at 39.22 billion ringgit from 39.93 billion ringgit this morning, while Islamic funds liquidity eased to 17.24 billion ringgit from 18.84 billion ringgit previously. Earlier, the central bank called for a conventional tender and 2 reverse repo tenders as well as 2 card tenders. It also announced the availability of reverse repo, sale and buyback agreements as well as collateralized commodity murabaha facilities for 1 and 3 months tenors. At 4 p.m, BNM called for a 39.20 billion conventional money market tender and a 17.20 billion ringgit murabaha money market tender, both for one-day money. The Malaysia Islamic Overnight Rate (MY) ORI stood at 3.00% as of yesterday. Dealers said Bursa Malaysia ended mixed today as profit taking earlier in the day tapered off as bargain hunting sets in while the market awaits fresh catalysts. At 5 p.m., the FTSE Bursa Malaysia KLCI, FBM KLCI, erased 2.47 points to 1,435.65 from yesterday's closing of 1,438.12. The index opened 0.16 of a point better at 1,438.28 and moved between 1,430.15 and 1,440.28 throughout the day. Turnover decreased to 2.93 billion units worth 1.94 billion ringgit from 3.38 billion units worth 2.0 billion ringgit yesterday. Apex Securities Berhad Head of Research Kenneth Leong said investors will be keeping a close watch on the ongoing quarterly corporate earnings releases in the US such as Coca-Cola, Microsoft, Alphabet and Visa later tonight. Meanwhile, Rakuten Trade Sdn Berhad, Ikuti Research Vice President Tong Pak Leng believe that investor sentiment will remain cautious in the near term, considering the growing external risk and volatility coupled with selling pressure from foreign funds. As such, the research firm expects the FBM KLCI to trend sideways within the 1,430 to 1,450 range for the rest of the week, with immediate support at 1,430 and support at 1,460. The government is optimistic about the country's investment outlook for the upcoming year, particularly in foreign direct investment. FDI, Investment Trade Industry Minister Tengku Datuk Sri Zafrul Abdul Aziz said in the first 6 months of the year, the total investment was about 132 billion, and that is already around 60% of the government's target for the year.
In the recently tabled budget 2024 by the Prime Minister, Tengku Datuk Sri Zafrul felt that, among others, it was a responsible budget, noting that the Prime Minister also plans to implement the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Additionally, the budget deficit forecast is around 5% for this year and is expected to reduce to 4.3% next year. According to the Minister, the Ministry of Finance had allocated adequate amount for the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry with an increment of 22% compared to the previous year.
For MITI, I think the budget that has been allocated by the Minister of Finance, of course the Prime Minister, is adequate given the circumstances. I think we know the fiscal situation of the country. We know we want to have a budget that is sustainable but yet inclusive as well. So we are thankful. I think in terms of allocation for MITI was an increment, was an increase of close to 22%. So we're looking forward to implementing some of the initiative that was announced under MITI and also across ministries under the budget.
Speaking recently to RTM, he stated that currently out of the 132 billion ringgit worth of investments, nearly half of that are domestic direct investment. The minister added, in terms of FDI, he remains optimistic that next year will be a stronger year for Malaysia.
However, there is a caveat. We know that today, with what's happening globally, global FDI has actually gone down. In the year 2022, global FDI actually decreased or went down by 12%. Therefore, the global ecosystem or the global environment is not showing strong growth when it comes to investment. However, we're bucking the trend, which is good. But at the moment, but we must not be complacent.
In addition, he said the global ecosystem is not showing strong growth when it comes to investment. Tengku Datuk Sri Zafrul added that the government is preparing, as they should not be complacent and must be ready to ensure Malaysia continues to capture for the kind of global FDI needed to further grow the economy. Malaysia hopes once again to become the preferred foreign investment destination. All this will have a spillover impact, particularly on the small and medium enterprises in the domestic supply chain. For the rakyat, it means better paying jobs, which will support the country's economy in manufacturing, services, primary sectors in facing various global challenges in the coming years.
Asian equities rose slightly to stand just off their lowest since November 2022, with the dollar eased as traders avoided bets ahead of economic data expected to offer clues to the next steps by the US Federal Reserve. Oil prices recovered some of the previous day losses as markets worried that the Israel-Hamas war could escalate into a wider conflict in the oil exporting region. Dalma Capital Chief Investment Officer Gary Dugan said the looming spectre of inflation grows even more imposing, especially considering the recent sharp ascent in oil prices. He said if oil prices persist at this level throughout the rest of 2023 and into 2024, this could potentially inject another bout of inflation into the global economy. China shares meanwhile stayed under pressure, with Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index sliding 0.68%, although the Shanghai Composite Index rose 0.32%. China's blue chip CSI 300 Index was flat after closing at its lowest in 4.5 years. Investor confidence kept weak even after State Fund Central Huging bought exchange-traded funds to bolster the flagging market. Elsewhere, the markets view that the Japanese currency will have a potential to spur an intervention by authorities to prop up the currency, having hit the key level of 150 recently. Oil prices rose in early Asia trade yesterday, recovering some of the previous day losses as investors remain nervous that the Israel-Hamas war could escalate into a wider conflict in the oil exporting region, causing potential supply disruptions. Brent crude futures climbed 70 cents or 0.8% to $90.53 a barrel, while US West Texas Intermediate crude futures increased 71 cents or 0.8% to $86.20 a barrel. UK Takashima and economists at Nomura Securities said the market is up on adjustment after a drop in the past two sessions and on nagging fears of possible supply disruption in West Asia. Both benchmarks fell more than 2% on Monday as diplomatic efforts in West Asia, the world's biggest oil supplying region, intensified to contain the conflict between Israel and Hamas, easing investor worries about supply disruptions. Takashima said Nomura expect the West Texas Intermediate or WTI to move within the $80 to $90 range for a while, with all eyes on the situation in Israel and Gaza, OPEC production, and the pace of demand recovery in China. Takashima added that investors are also focusing on US inventory data. Hamas says at least 140 people killed in Israel night strikes on Gaza. That and more coming up in our foreign segment. Gaza's Hamas government said that Israeli airstrikes on the besieged territory during the night on Tuesday had killed at least 140 people. A statement from the government's media office said more than 140 people were martyred and hundreds wounded in massacres committed by the occupation Israel raids. Gaza Rural said more than 5,000 people have been killed in the territory since their gunmen attacked Israel on 7th October, killing at least 1,400 people. Israeli airstrikes continue on Al-Shati camp in Gaza, Rafah and Khan Yunis, with artillery shelling taking place in Deir al-Balah. More than 20 people have been killed in the center of Gaza today. Meanwhile, hospitals in Gaza are still being bombed by Israel and the healthcare system is at risk of collapse if no medical equipment and supplies are provided for the hospitals. Police in Panama fired tear gas at protesters, burning tires and blocking roads to protest a contract allowing a Canadian company to continue operating Central America's biggest copper mine. The protesters are concerned about potential environmental damage from operations at the mine owned by First Quantum, one of the biggest copper extractors in the world. After protests erupted on Friday and continued over the weekend, demonstrators again took the streets in Panama City and in other provinces. The government cancelled school for the day for fear of riots as traffic in Panama City was disrupted and some metro stations had to close. Police said 25 people were arrested. Opened in 2019, the open-pit Cobre Panama mine, some 120 kilometers west of the capital and 20 kilometers from the Caribbean coast, can produce 300,000 tons of copper per year. In 2021, Panama's Supreme Court ratified a lower court's ruling that the original concession of mining rights granted to subsidiary Minera Panama until 2037 was unconstitutional. Negotiations between the government and First Quantum were reopened and finalized earlier this year. The new contract determines that the company will pay the government at least $375 million each year, 10 times more than previously, and allows First Quantum to operate in Panama for 20 years, renewable for another 20. Workers and emergency personnel cleared the scene following a train crash in Bangladesh which killed at least 17 people and injured 100 others. The crash in the eastern city of Bairab saw a freight train smash into a passenger train travelling in the opposite direction, derailing 2 passenger carriages. Sadiqur Rahman, a government administrator in Bairab, told AFP that rescuers reported they could still see bodies crouched and trapped under overturned coaches. So far, 2 people had been rescued alive from the overturned coaches. The tragedy occurred 60 kilometers northeast of the capital, Dhaka. Local residents and volunteers rushed to the scene after the accident took place at around 4 p.m. yesterday. Officials said fire service, police and the Elite Rapid Action Battalion Security Force were at the crash site. Bangladesh authorities have ordered 2 investigations into the accident and appeals have been made for volunteers to donate blood. Nazmul Islam, a general manager of the state-run Bangladesh Railway, which owns the train, told local media the freight train overshot its signal. Next in sports, Malaysian Tigers to use India tourney as selection platform for Olympic qualifiers. The 2023 Women's Asian Champions Trophy ACT in Ranchi, India from 27th October to 5th November will be used to assess and select the Malaysian Tigers players for the 2024 Paris Olympic qualifiers. National women's hockey team head coach Muhammad Nasir Nobli Ibrahim, through a statement released, said he has thrown down the gauntlet to the 20 players who will be featuring in India to show their true capabilities so that they can be evaluated and listed for next year's January Olympic qualifiers. He said those chosen for the act possess high quality, technical skill, resilience and physical strength that will make it easier for them to adapt to the team's tactical approach as well as a fast tempo, especially when playing at the highest level. He also said that 15 of the players named for the ACT played in the recent 2022 Hangzhou Asian Games, while 5 others are newcomers. The head coach added that the players' tactical acumen as well as their capability in making on-field decisions were among the criteria taken into consideration in addition to the efforts put in and the desire to fight for the cause. The 2023 Women's Act, to be played in a round-robin format, will see India, Malaysia, China, Japan, South Korea and Thailand vying for glory. The 2023 Sultan of Johor Cup SOJC from 27 October to 4 November is the best stage for the national junior hockey squad to identify weaknesses that need to be improved ahead of the 2023 Junior World Cup JWC in December. Malaysian Hockey Confederation MHC President Datuk Sri Subhan Kamal said the presence of some of the same teams in both tournaments gave the young Tigers squad the opportunity to sharpen their teeth in what resembles a sneak preview of the real battle at the 2023 JWC from 5th to 16 December. The Under-21 SOGC tournament will be joined by the giants of Great Britain and India. That concludes this evening's Malaysia Tonight. A reminder of our top story: ban on raising banners reciting takbir, not government stand. Don't forget to tune in to World Today coming up tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. on TV2. Till then, I'm SAHIH Samsudin, Malaysia Madani, tekad perpaduan penuhi harapan. Thanks for watching.